This is Ed Fallon, and I am back from my absence. I've actually had a makeover while I was gone. I'm sure some of you have been wondering, what happened to me. So I've decided to go in with the silk tie and the button-down lawyer look. No, actually, I'm Channing Dutton, and I'm filling in for Ed. As many of you know, Ed is gone this week and has a series of guest hosts filling in. And Ed and I have developed a mutual admiration society, primarily over the fact that I'm passionate about climate change. I'm passionate about what's going on in our community, what we're doing about these changes. And I've had the opportunity and fun to be a guest with Ed on several occasions, and he asked me to guest host today with the idea of talking about storms, climate, and energy. And I thought that it might be good to start today. I know Ed is, a careful reviewer of the Des Moines Register. And so in the Register today, on page 5A, is a discussion of the candidates for governor. And there's a nice little summary about Jack Hatch, Terry Branstad, Tyler Olson. And these are apparently the Register's version of who are the real contenders. And they're talking about their talking points. And I thought it was important for us today to really focus on what is the press reporting are the talking points that are of interest. And so what I'm going to do here real quickly is, Jack Hatch is a policy wonk, and he's good at drafting legislation, healthcare. Substantive issues are going to be coming out in the future months, but conspicuously absent is the word climate or the word change, the word global or the word warming. Let's go to Terry Branstad. Let's look at his talking points. Well, we know that he's fallen a little flat on his face in creating the 220,000 jobs that he promised us that he would do. I think by last count, he was at about 30,000 new jobs. But he's still interested in unemployment, and he's going to kickstart our economy. Let's see if the magic 4 words are there. No climate, no change, no global, no warming. All right, but now we've got a young guy, Tyler Olson. And Tyler Olson is going to bring a new type of energetic leadership to the people of Iowa if he is elected governor, and he wants to contrast himself from the old guys. And so he wants to position the state for the next 30 years. Well, let's see. This is 2013. So in 30 years, we'll be sitting at 2043. Channing will be, I hate to think of that. I'm going to be 88 years old in 2043. And my father, who recently passed away, he made it to 88, so maybe I'll make it that far as well. His highlights, Tyler Olson, is education. I think education is probably going to be really important, and what we educate our youth about is going to be equally important in the future. He also wants to expand internet access. Well, speaking of expanding internet access, I thought it would be helpful for us today to talk a little bit about Dr. James Hansen. Dr. Hansen, as many of you know, is born and raised in Denison, Iowa, a large farm family. He was a beneficiary of the public school system in the Denison School District, went to the University of Iowa, received his PhD, studied with Dr. James Van Allen. And several years ago, back in 1988, Dr. Hansen was the first prominent climate scientist to testify in front of Congress about the unfolding climate catastrophe that we're now seeing. And he's written an excellent book called Storms of My Grandchildren. And what Dr. Hansen writes about as an old man is he's saying, I don't want to be in a situation where my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren look up who I was. They Google me because Tyler Olson will have a high-speed internet that'll be available for our educated youth, and they'll look and see what Dr. James Hansen said about climate change back in the 80s, in the 90s, at the turn of the century, and as we entered into the first 2 decades of this century. And he wrote this book. It's called Storms of My Grandchildren. It is a scientific book, but what I like about James Hansen is he understands that not all of his readers will be scientists. And so he even has segments in the book where he goes, I'm going to delve into atmospheric science right now, the rules of physics, the math. And if you want, just skip to page 188 and continue on with the story. But he is keen on discussing and educating about atmospheric water vapor. And so, Governor Olson, if you happen to get the nod here in the next election, I would suggest that our education focus should be on atmospheric water vapor. Because what Hansen says is the storms that my grandchildren will see will begin long before the planet approaches runaway greenhouse effect. And here he says, even without the chaos that disintegrating ice sheets will bring, and our ice sheets are just commencing the disintegration, Hansen says the strongest storms will become more powerful this century. And he says that statement is true for storm types that are driven by latent heat. That's a big deal because storms fueled by latent heat include thunderstorms and tornadoes and tropical storms, such as hurricanes and typhoons. Oh, and I know. Some of you are going to say, yeah, but I heard that we don't have that many hurricanes. Well, if you lived in Mexico, you had an average hurricane season, and our hurricane season is potentially starting up. As a matter of fact, we're still a month away from the anniversary of Sandy. So keep your radio, your weather radios tuned tight and careful, because latent heat in the atmosphere produces really what we're going to be talking about today, and that is the increased water vapor leads to larger storms, and this water vapor is the direct result of the rising temperatures, which with 95% scientific certainty have been tied to the actions of man during the era of man, in particular the last 150 years, as we have entered into the era of burning fossil fuels. Now, on a website called globalchange.gov, in January of 2013, the National Climate Assessment Committee, which is a group of 60 prominent scientists from around the United States, issued a draft report. And even though this is written several years after Dr. Hansen wrote those words that we talked about in Storms of My Grandchildren, the executive summary, which is still available online, reads this way. Climate change is already affecting the American people. Certain types of weather events have become more frequent and or intense. These include heat waves. You know, I kind of remember a heat wave that was in effect here until about 10 days ago. Heavy downpours. Well, we're going to be talking about heavy downpours in Japan, in Mexico, and in Colorado for the rest of this show. And in sub-regions, floods and droughts. And again, droughts is a key term because the state of Iowa has already entered back into the drought cycle that we saw in effect for about 22 months leading up to the spring of this year, 2013, when we received a heavy and unprecedented dose of rain starting in early April, ending in mid-May. And that rain caused a lot of people to think, well, you know, the drought has been broken. The drought is over. But then as we go through June, and we certainly hit July, we have a cool state fair in August, and then things heat up for approximately the next 4 weeks with record temperatures being set both at night and during the day. Temperatures in September in the 100-degree categories, high humidity. By the way, high humidity, tropical humidity, you know, where you walk out of your front door and you feel like you're in New Orleans or you feel like you're in the Caribbean. Those are all hallmarks of the term that Dr. Hansen talked about, latent heat and atmospheric water vapor increasing. So we have James Hansen issuing clear, specific warnings in 1988. He writes Storms of My Grandchildren. I think the publication date was 2007, maybe 2008, talking again about the effects that we're going to see. We have the executive summary indicating that in January of 2013 that we are going to see temperature increases, not just of 2 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe in the 4-degree Fahrenheit range, depending on which scenario or which model you believe. It may be a 5-degree F increase, and under the worst case scenarios, which are on the table, maybe we're looking at a 10-degree Fahrenheit increase. And these phenomena, these aspects of physics in our atmosphere are going to continue to increase the chances that we will see extreme weather events. So with me here today, and I want to introduce him at this point because I want to start by talking about what's going on in Japan. because there are many issues of interest that the local press certainly does not cover. The American press covers and actually is covered well, but it almost requires that you watch the 5:30 p.m. newscast. ABC News has done a wonderful job documenting the problems at Fukushima. But with me here today is Ed Woolsey. And Ed has been a guest on Ed Fallon's show many times in the past. And through Ed Fallon, Ed Woolsey and I have become friends. And Ed, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself briefly to the audience? Tell us, because I was asking you earlier, a lot of people think I'm just a climate guy, but I'm actually a lawyer by day. What do you do by day? What's your work?
Yeah, I've been a renewable energy entrepreneur now for all my career here in Iowa, and worked as a lobbyist and a consultant and a project developer and an owner and operator of renewable energy systems since I graduated from a graduate program and environmental studies program in Iowa in '82. So I've been one of the people that's been fortunate enough to be able to work in an area of my passion and belief my entire career.
Wow, good for you. Now, I was for the audience members who can do reverse math, I was confessing that I was 58 years old as you and I are doing this here today. How old are you, Ed?
Yeah, I'm 57.
All right, so same basic generation. Let's break down a little bit about your passion first off. You talk about renewable energy entrepreneur. So what are the classic renewable energies, and then if there's other areas that perhaps the listeners should think about that maybe just John Q. Public does not understand, this also is renewable energy.
Sure. There's in Iowa here we have the natural resources are really almost an awfully lot, relatively unlimited compared to the energy that we use here in the state, between the biomass that's developed from the interaction from photosynthetic processes of the sun and the wind and the water and the soils. We have solar, a great solar resource here in Iowa, available to handle a lot of our daily needs during the day specifically, and wind resource to handle maybe 8 times the total energy that we use here on an annual basis. So Iowa really has plenty of energy here that we can capture in an economic manner to handle all of our energy needs if we just have the policies and the willpower to implement them.
So Ed, are you saying geographically Iowa is well positioned for these renewable energies such as the wind and the solar?
Iowa probably is about the best geographically located region on the planet for renewable energy resources. We have, like I mentioned, we have a wide variety that we're able to capture here. We're not talking geothermal here. We're talking biomass. Our liquid transportation fuels that we get currently from corn and then coming from cellulosic crops. The algae that's going to be here, a combination of carbon dioxide and sunlight. We've got an amazing wealth of natural resources. Almost any one of these can handle our energy resources, but since we have so many different ones, we ought to be using renewable energy, and indeed we are right now with liquid transportation fuels as our major exports out of this state. The issue of sustainability is a completely separate topic, of course, but when I talk about renewable, I mean sustainably produced, and we've got some issues of that with respect to ethanol and biodiesel and that kind of thing. But otherwise, we're in good shape.
I've read that based on our topography and based on our soil, that Iowa is, essentially the heart of the breadbasket in terms of our ability to grow food. But I think what you're saying is, well, we have other resources other than the topography and other than the soil. And that is our location, which gives us the opportunity to take advantage of wind, solar, those type of resources.
Sure. And one of the things we have going for us here is our wealth of farmers. Well, there's not as many as there used to be, but these farmers are quite an asset when it comes to harvesting biomass from the photosynthetic pathways that we have available to us. So you have that. The natural wind resource we have here is substantial. substantial. And one of the things that we have really going for us here is we have now a track record of being able to profit and to harvest these renewable energy technologies. And because we have that, we're starting to develop some infrastructure in terms of vested interests in these technologies. It's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, these vested interests will continue to try to capture the market, and on the other hand, they're realizing how much money is available here, and the politicians are starting to figure this out. They've figured this out for quite a while, actually, but it gives us a chance to really move into some new areas.
Well, let's dive into that just a little bit further, because when I look at the climate websites, when I look at the people, who are talking about energy, more in your area, I see that there is story after story after story about Germany, that Germany has made this massive move away from fossil fuels. Germany is moving away from nuclear power. Germany is focusing on their renewable sources, which I assume are the same ones we're talking about: solar, wind, maybe some hydropower. How does Iowa stack up in energy potential versus a country like Germany?
I lived in Germany for 2.5 years while I was in the military, so I lived in southern Germany. One of the things that that's similar there is we're about the same geographic size here in Iowa as Germany is. They have about 10 times the population that Iowa has, 30 million, I think, or something along those lines. There's a huge difference. There's a reason Germany is leading in this arena, and one has to do with their experiences during World War II when their fuel supplies were cut off during the war. They have a much greater appreciation for access to energy and energy resource stability, price stability, than what we have here in the United States. So that's spurring them to some significant action. And the other thing is the climate change issue. They've certainly internalized the science around climate change much better than we have at this point.
So are they ahead of Iowa in terms of exploiting solar resource?
Sure.
No question.
No question. They're head and shoulders above us. We just recently took a little bicycle tour over and through the northern part of Germany and looked at some of the solar installations over there on buildings and homes and small businesses. And it's really encouraging to see the amount of energy now that they're gathering from the sun during
So
the
you
day.
mean you're cycling around Germany and you're looking at businesses and private homes with solar installations?
Oh yeah, a lot of them. It's now the norm to see these installations go up in the countryside.
How much, and then let's compare this to Iowa, how much is going on in Iowa, from maybe the renewable energy entrepreneur expert?
Yeah.
Who's putting solar on their buildings? Who's putting solar on their homes? And do we have programs or policies that allow us to do this?
Well, yeah, we do have policies that allow us to do this. The problem is the way these policies are set up right now, the average homeowner is paid back under a kind of a arcane group of laws that are federal in nature and also state in nature, and they're really complicated to put together and to understand, for that matter. And the best you can do is maybe 6, 7, 8 cents per kilowatt hour back, or net bill, with actually gives you retail rate back for your solar at about 10 cents or 11 cents per kilowatt hour. The policies that we have are just not up to speed to what we're seeing in Germany or Denmark or any of the northern European countries.
And here in Iowa, is there any big movement among private homeowners or private business? I've got a small law firm in West Des Moines. Are there people putting solar on their roofs here in Iowa?
Yeah, there are people putting solar on roofs here. Most of them are the early adopters of the technology. However, there's been a kind of a confluence of incentive programs up in northeastern Iowa that has allowed some small businesses now are seeing 6 or 7 year return on their investments. We can do that down here in the Des Moines area, but it's not nearly as easy, and most of our paybacks are longer than that. So if a person has a desire to put solar on, they have some good company now in the area, but for the most part, we're just starting to delve into that.
And then let's say we have a homeowner who wants to put solar on. can they put that solar on and A, provide for their entire household need with current solar technology, and B, can they export their own solar? Can they sell it to the power companies here in the state of Iowa at the present time?
Yeah, you can do both of those. You can set a system up and be standalone, completely cut off from the grid, and run your own batteries and take care of your own electricity needs on a real-time basis. And more and more people are doing that, just cutting the cord with the utility company for various reasons. Most of the people that we see doing that right now are just people who do not like the utility companies and want to get away from them. However, you can also, like I said, net bill with the utility, in which case you can run the meter both directions. When you're generating more electricity than what you're using, the meter runs one way. When you're normally using more than what you can generate, it runs back the other way. And at the end of the month, they figure the difference and pay you a small check, or you pay them a check.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in Japan, and of course, with the water vapor being kind of the theme, water vapor in the atmosphere. We know that the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Let me just reset that stage for the listeners. Fukushima, more than 2 years ago, was devastated by first the earthquake and then the tsunami. And the tsunami in particular put their nuclear power plant under great stress, and it's essentially has put them right on the precipice of a complete disaster, ultimately leading to meltdown. And they don't have control of that situation. They're managing it, but don't have control. Am I in the ballpark correct in that regard?
Yeah, it looks like to me that it's just a catastrophe under some pretty poor management right now.
All right, so that power plant has just been hit by a strong typhoon, which is pushing water again back into the communities, back into the power plant station itself. And that's just happened in the last, I think, 36 hours or so.
Right.
I think they're just starting that cleanup. What's going on? I realize renewable is your baby, but what's going on with what Fukushima is doing to kind of the nuclear power frame of mind in the United States? How do you assess that right now?
I think the Fukushima issue has fairly much driven a nail in the coffin of nuclear here. I'm hoping it's not premature, as the more we learn about some of the new nuclear technologies. But the last efforts by Mid-American Energy here to push forward with a nuclear power plant couldn't have come at a worse time for Mid-American as they proposed the legislation here at the Capitol, right in the middle of the whole Fukushima disaster.
And so from your reading or your just general knowledge of what's going on in energy, is there a push anywhere? I think, wasn't there a push in Georgia to actually start construction of a new reactor?
Well, the push for nuclear reactors, comes from large moneyed interests. It's either the technology provider or it's a utility that's actually putting forward the proposals. And with the lack of public support for these, or even public opposition to these technologies now through issues like Fukushima and Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, the public is really has pretty cold feet about pushing public policy that will allow these things to be built.
Politicians love to follow the public. I think what's the old saying? A politician gets up in the morning and waits for a parade to form so they can then stand in front of it.
There's a lot of truth to that.
All right. So is there any politician standing in front of we need to build new generation nuclear reactors right now?
I think they're standing a lot further back than they were here 2 years ago behind this. I think the parade has basically come to a halt on the issue.
All right. Well, and what's of particular interest to me is, of course, the fact that Fukushima has continued to just be a complete catastrophe in terms of just managing the water necessary to cool their reactors that were in operation at the time of tsunami, but B, their stored spent fuel. And that crisis continues to just lead into an ever darker hole, as I understand it.
Boy, it sure does to me. As we hear more and more reports come out of that area about the groundwater, this line, this river of contaminated water going out underground, out into the ocean, and being detected out there, all these tanks that they're setting up there and the crazy ideas they've got for the future. This is a really a nasty situation. The good part is, I guess, it's fairly localized. Given with the exception of tuna and exception of the future, as this stuff continues to circulate around the planet. But for right now, it seems to be a fairly localized type of event. But it seems to be under some fairly incompetent oversight.
And yet, the Japanese have this reputation of being A, pro-nuke, B, pro-technology, spend the money that's necessary to make complex systems work. And, I mean, literally, my reading is they've built 1,000 tanks to hold hundreds of thousands of gallons of radioactive water, and the tanks leak.
Well, that's what tanks do. Tanks leak. That's what you're going to expect to see from them. And when you've got a substance like radioactive water, or you got something that's heating up, you're going to be, that's the laws of expansion and physics. You heat it up, it's going to expand, it's going to release, it's going to go somewhere. So keeping the lid on this thing, I can understand why it's a difficult process. But I guess I am getting old and cynical, Channing. But I want these things verified when these people tell me what's going on there, and I'm not seeing the verification coming out of that plant and the construction right there that I would like to see.
There's a great story if you want to Google it in the New York Times, approximately 1 month old, but it indicates that they have 1,000 tanks and they've hired 2 people to monitor these 1,000 tanks. They limit them to 4 hours a day, and there's no fuel gauge. There's no level on the tanks themselves. And so these fellows are supposed to drive around and look for leaks.
Well, you can tap on a tank,
Yeah.
tell. No, I
do that with my grill.
And these guys are experts in technology,
Wow.
and the sensing capabilities that we have for tanks, they could put a proximity sensor in the top of this tank for $25. And tell you what the level in that tank is, and if we're not seeing that, then what's up?
It's such a crazy system, and this is not a movie review, but in a plot that sounds like it's going to come from a movie, the Japanese have proposed spending $320 million to go down 100 feet with refrigeration bars and to create an ice vault around this nuclear power plant. True?
Yeah. Good luck to them.
Well, I know, but they've already demonstrated that they'll build a high technology, fantastically complicated series of nuclear reactors and store fuel in an earthquake and tsunami zone. Mm-hmm. And now the proposal is we're going to refrigerate the earth under the nuclear power plant.
Well, you see, if we were seeing this come out of the International Energy Agency, the agency responsible for international oversight of nuclear power plants, and then I would have one opinion possibly. If it's just coming out of the owners of this current power plant, then that's a whole another can of worms and issues.
All right. Well, we're at the point where we're going to go to a commercial break. But first, let me give a special thanks to our show's sponsor. And today, those sponsors are the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, the Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, and a project that's near and dear to my heart and certainly near and dear to Ed's feet, the Great March for Climate Action. Thanks also to Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of the show. Gateway Market and Cafe is located at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill District and provides a lot of fresh foods from Iowa farms and local producers, and they keep their money in the local economy. Gateway Market creates memorable food experiences by offering an abundant selection of natural, organic, and specialty foods from around the world. They serve the central Iowa community by providing locally made, handcrafted products in a welcoming, customer-centered environment that encourages learning and honors the simple pleasures of the table. Stop in today for a delicious breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's a favorite local spot. And thanks also to Hawk Restaurant. Experience healthy, local, delicious, sustainable farm-to-table dining in the historic East Village of Des Moines. Hawk Restaurant serves lunch, dinner, and brunch on Sundays, all while you are eating in season. Thanks also to Fighting Burrito in Ames and downtown Des Moines. It's a great green place to have lunch, healthy, delicious, and quick. You should stop in today. I want to also extend thanks to the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Summit. That's the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Summit for sponsoring this past segment of the show. In 2013, the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Summit will be held on November 9th at Drake University, and it will be a great event to learn about starting and growing your business. At a cost of only $35, you'll learn about the Affordable Care Act. And there's a lot to be learned there because there's a lot of misinformation going on. You'll learn about changes in the tax code. You'll get help with your local business plan and a lot more. And last year, more than 500 folks attended and about 100 new business startups came out of the event. So sign up today. Thanks also to Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering located in Beaverdale, offering unique menus, delicious items, food items for breakfast, lunch, early bird meals, and dinner. Be sure to check out their patio and rooftop and enjoy the great outdoors, especially with the break in the weather we've had these past few days. Thanks also again to Ritual Cafe. It's a great place for tea, coffee, smoothies, paninis, meetings, music, and more. There's always something happening at Ritual.
Real Estate Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I'm the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
The dawn of a new era begins. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, we're back, and as you can see on the screen, at least for those of you who are watching online, Maddie has put up a nuclear fallout map, and we were, in the last segment, we were talking about what's going on in Fukushima and why those of us in the United States should have an interest in massive radioactive water leaks escaping the ice box that the Japanese are proposing to build in a proven earthquake and tsunami zone. Ed, why don't you go ahead and give us a little lecture here on what we're looking at and what this map is telling us.
Yeah, over here you can see the actual country of Japan and the prevailing winds.
In your mic, Ed.
And the prevailing winds are coming from the southwest there and blowing our direction. So they're hitting the west coast all the way from British Columbia up from Alaska, southern Alaska and the Aleutian Island chains, clear down the western coast of the U.S., Washington, Oregon, California, within 10 days, and then stretching clear out across the rest, at least to Iowa. They're within 10 days of the time of the event. So you can actually see what kind of a dose that we were getting in our part of the country.
And let's just extrapolate it to the current problem. They lose control of their ability to contain the radioactive water. Does the wind basically mimic what the ocean circulation patterns are going to be as well?
Well, you've got a fairly complex ocean circulation pattern, but actually you do have kind of the similar coming from west to east. So it does mimic it to a large extent. One of the things that does mimic it is the migration pattern for tuna. The giant tuna that we're seeing right now coming up on the west coast that are showing up with elevated levels of contamination, radioactive contamination. They're bioaccumulating in that food chain already. And as we go have our tuna melt last night is what I had for dinner. Now I'm probably starting to click too. I went out and bought a Geiger counter, an old Army surplus Geiger counter, just kind of for fun. But I turn it on once in a while just because I like to verify what I'm being told.
Well, and one of the things that the mainline press does a terrible job of reporting is the cost of, and in this circumstance, we're talking about the nuclear catastrophe. But, I'm looking at the state of Oregon, and we see repeated stories about the debris from the tsunami really just now unloading on that shoreline. And someone in that state of Oregon is paying to clean up that debris, not to mention the environmental cost that debris is bringing to the waters off the Pacific Northwest.
I think, Channing, if you compare what's going on here to what's going on in Iowa, one of the interesting comparisons is the relative size of Japan, how small it is, how densely populated it is, and how many people they have. They don't have a whole lot of options with respect to alternative energy supplies. However, they're going gangbusters right now towards solar and wind. But with respect to Iowa, it's not even in the same ballpark. We have so many more natural resources here in terms of wind and solar to draw from. That we really have what I say is a moral obligation to develop these resources and to demonstrate exactly what can be done.
During the break, I see Alaska up here on the map. During the break, you were telling me that there's also a comparison between Germany's potential to generate solar power from solar panels and Iowa. And can you share with the audience what you were telling me about Germany's relationship to Alaska and where Iowa stands in this potential solar debate?
Sure, there are good resource maps now for the solar potential all over the planet. And one of the things that we see is the solar potential in Germany is equal to about the solar potential that we have in Alaska. So here in the Midwest, we have a lot greater solar potential in what we see, solar resource, in what we see in Germany.
And that was your comment in the beginning, is
right.
We have another resource we should and could be exporting to the benefit of the Iowa economy.
Certainly, and it has a multiplier effect in the economy when you have people out there that are keeping their utility, their energy dollars in home in their pockets. Those dollars are then spent, at the local grocery store, or local businesses. So we have that stay at home, that local aspect to energy production, and that's what we're seeing that's what we're pushing for politically, as a democratization, what's called a democratization of our energy system.
Well, and let's hope that on the talking points in the Register today, when Tyler Olson says that he's interested in economic development, he's talking about the renewable potential that the state of Iowa has, because that's a prime spot where we could make big strides. When
Governor Branstad came out and talked about creating, 250,000 jobs or 220,000 jobs, actually there was a way that he could get to that by using renewable energy and starting to really develop our renewable energy resources here in the state. But given the political realities in this state and the amount of money that the utility companies, the amount of power that they have at the Capitol, we just are not seeing the policies yet. We don't have enough people that understand what the opportunity is and are willing to talk to their politicians about those opportunities.
Well, and we need the listeners and people around the state of Iowa to form that parade so these politicians can stand in front of that one too. Let's go next. I think Maddie had up on the screen. We're going to give Ed a test here. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about what's going on in Mexico and what's going on in Colorado. And so we've got two shots here of a red car. So Ed, take a look at shot number 1. And then Maddie, if you can move us to shot number 2. See the red car there? Both red cars devastated. Both red cars part of a massive movement of water. So the question for you, Ed, at least the first part of the test is, which one is in Mexico and which one is in Colorado?
Well, this looks like a red car that's decided not to take the highway. It's taking more of a liquid route down to Mexico these days. You can't tell. You can't tell. This is some fairly significant catastrophic weather-related events in both places, eh?
All right, and this is true. So I'm gonna next promote the test a little bit further. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who can see it, if you zoom in on the yellow Ryder truck in the background, it has Spanish on it. So the second photograph of the red car on the embankment where it's been deposited by moving water, that is Mexico. But Mexico and Colorado have something in common, and that is they both had massive weather events in the last week. And the first, I'm gonna do a little test with Ed, and we haven't practiced this, so Ed's just got to kind of shoot from the hip. Ed, I'm going to give you some numbers, and I want you to tell me what you think these numbers represent. So the first number is, it's actually a combination of two numbers, 42 and 40,000. And recently in the news as it pertains to Colorado and Mexico.
42 and 40,000. I would have absolutely no idea, Channing.
All right. Well, in Mexico this past week, they have been hit by tropical storms from both coasts.
Right.
So they had a typhoon blow in from the Pacific.
Right.
And they had the remnants of a hurricane overrun the landmass from the Gulf. This results in 42 dead. The city of Acapulco, in addition to all of their terrible, unrelenting crime problems, now has 40,000 turistas who are trapped there and have no way to get out. So the numbers are the fatality rate in Mexico, and so I'm sure some of those 40,000 are the Americans who are there now with a new set of worries in Acapulco. The next number that I would like you to kind of ponder is 21.13.
21.13. Let's see. What could 21.13 be?
I'll give you a hint if you want one.
All right.
It's a reference to inches.
Inches of mercury is usually where you see something along the eye, or inches of water.
Right.
So
water.
It was a low atmospheric pressure reading.
Not bad, but not right.
Okay.
No cigar.
Okay.
21.13 is the amount of rainfall that fell in a 6-day period in Boulder, Colorado.
Holy cats. I saw the 14-inch reading, but I didn't see that larger.
And Maddie, I think right here, we're just bringing it up. I'm not sure that if, at least the shot that I see here in the studio doesn't show the far right-hand side, but as of September 13th, which was 4 days ago, Boulder had 14.71 inches. Can we see the right-hand side of that graph, Maddie? Can you? All right. You're seeing it on your monitor. We're just not seeing it here. All right. Well, Ed, I'll tell you, on the right-hand side of this graph, it goes off the chart. So what we're looking at is rainfall, monthly precipitation totals in inches. But when you get to 2013, again, we can't see it here in the studio, but when you get to 2013, that line is off the chart, and it's what's happened in the past week that has pulled it off the chart. Now, 21.13 inches of rain in Boulder is the same as 21 feet of snow in 6 days.
Yeah.
And what was widely reported, just as we see here on this graph, see, this particular graph was prepared before the weekend rain. But now we've moved to this unprecedented amount of rain. It's the largest, of course, 1 week cycle of rain ever in Colorado. They've broken the Boulder record for annual rainfall, which was a little bit above 30 inches with this 6-day event. And they have a lot of moisture from the atmosphere falling on their canyons, falling on their landmass, and wreaking havoc.
Channing, as of an hour ago, there's still 648 people missing out there, and unaccounted for 648.
Okay, now I had that number written down. Let me give you another number, 8. It goes right with that missing person number.
The number dead?
Number of dead.
Oh boy.
8 souls have lost their lives.
You know, and this is the new normal. This is the new normal, and why people can't understand that is beyond me. You know, this is what we expect to see. This is what's predicted by Jim Hansen, to be happening, and this is what we're seeing happen. You know, it's just one foot after another.
I brought with me a related article, and that is in Virginia, in the state of Virginia, their local emergency planners, regional federal officials, mayors, state representatives, they gathered at the College of William and Mary this past week, and they gathered with one point in mind, and that is to express their weariness, their unhappiness with the political leadership in the state of Virginia. Why aren't we planning? Why aren't we doing more? And here's the quote. Lewis Lawrence, director of the planning district for what's called the Middle Peninsula. It's often difficult to convince the state's elected official that climate change is already having an effect in Virginia. And go ahead, Ed.
Well, yeah, when you got one political party that completely disregards the science that we're seeing right now, it's just it would be embarrassing. I asked Congressman Latham if it would be embarrassing. If it wasn't embarrassing to be so anti-science inside the Beltway, and he laughed and rolled up a newspaper and swatted me with it. You know, so yeah, he understands that it's embarrassing. It would be embarrassing for an intelligent individual to have to toe this Koch Industries anti-climate change line.
Well, we are at a point where it's now coming to the time where we have to lead this. We have to form this parade. We have to point the parade a certain direction, and we need a politician or 2 or 3, Republican, Democrat. We need an independent. We need someone with the wisdom to understand that this is the event that we should be focusing on. Let me give you a couple other numbers. 12.
12 disciples. 12. Let's see.
Not bad.
Go ahead.
Very good. I'm glad your mother would be very proud of you that you went right to that issue. 12 is the number of dams that have either been broken or damaged significantly in the state of Colorado. And when these dams break, they devastate the communities downstream. And the reason the dams are breaking is they cannot withstand this 21 inches of rain that's fallen basically in the Denver area. Next number, 50.
Bridges.
Very good. Ding, ding, ding. Move to the head of the class. Class, pay attention. Ed is speaking now.
Small class size, but that's okay.
Bridges lost or bridges significantly damaged. If you spend any time with the news or you spend any time on the internet, it's the bridges. This one relates to it. 150.
Oh, roads washed out?
Exactly right. 150 miles of washed out roads that someone's going to have to reach into their pocket, and they're going to have to repair these dams, and they're going to have to repair these bridges, and they're going to have to repair these roads, because we're seeing the effects of what happens when these roads are devastated. Communities are cut off, and the American people expect their government to react. Now, let's talk a little bit about government reaction. I mean, what's your view, Ed? Does government have a role to play in these disasters, and should government be reacting in terms of FEMA, the federal government? Should we be helping in these regards?
You know, I've always felt that was one of the key roles of government. And as we go through, as we've seen disasters when you and I were growing up, it was always the federal government that could come in and actually step in and give people a hand up, and keep some fresh water coming, keep some food coming until people could get their feet under them. As these weather-related events continue to increase, I think the capabilities of the federal government are becoming less and less responsive, less and less able to meet those needs. So, and you add to that a whole sector out there, the political spectrum right now feels that the federal government doesn't have a role in their lives. So they're not willing to fund these agencies to keep the science flowing into them, so that they can stay abreast of it, or to keep them in resources, so that they can meet these catastrophic needs out here.
We're seeing story after story in reference to the drought issue. And Maddie, if you want to go ahead and pop up, I think we have a last couple of graphics on drought. But we're seeing it certainly in the California, Nevada, Oregon regions where they're being devastated by wildfire. Arizona, New Mexico, the bright red zones that we're seeing here represent the fire districts. And of course, the stories now coming out are we're out of money. The federal government cannot continue to fund this firefight. And I think that's right to your point about we're going to have to start making some very hard choices on what we will fund and what we won't fund.
Oh, I think that's exactly right. You know, you look at I think that plays a role in people's opposition to this latest little wartime excursion that we were talking about.
You mean our cruise missiles going to Syria?
Right.
And then Maddie's just put up the enhanced or the closer view. This is current as of September 10. This is from the University of Nebraska, which has a very authoritative drought monitoring site. And the color code tells us that Iowa, central Iowa, substantial part of it is in severe drought. And as I recall, the yellow zone is moderate drought. Reactions, Ed, when you look at this?
Well, I like I was mentioning to you a little bit earlier, that you watch that historical documentary on the Dust Bowl, and my grandparents talked to me about being in the Dust Bowl. So when I see something like that, I take it very seriously. I watched this drought come from the desert Southwest and move up across the Midwest over the last 4 years, the same way that it did during the Dust Bowl. So I was very relieved this spring when we started getting some good rains and this map started shrinking. But now it's turned around again, so I'm concerned again.
Well, and people who make use of the trails around central Iowa certainly see what's happening to our rivers. The raccoon is returned to its bare trickle.
Yep.
My understanding is the Waterworks is taking a very careful look at announcing another rate hike in terms of dealing with the nutrient problems caused by the runoff, even during a period of drought. Mm-hmm. And so these problems continue. Let me give you one more number. We're kind of coming up towards the end of our segment. 150 million. So this is a dollar number. What do you think?
150 million. Well, that probably is probably in the ballpark for what it's going to cost Colorado to recover from this.
Very close, but not quite, because you're that's right. Going to give you the buzzer. Give him the hook, Matty. But the 150 million is the cost for Boulder County alone, and that is the cost that they project within the first 4 or 5 days. For example, when they had 14.71 inches of rain. That 150 million is 10 times the annual budget in terms of what Boulder County is allocating for roads, what Boulder County is allocating for infrastructure repair. And in a related story, one of the things that I thought was significant and is just coming out today, the headline is, Colorado floodwaters cover fracking and oil projects. And here's the quote, "We have no idea what those wells are leaking now." And so as these floods devastate these communities, we can talk about the roads and we can talk about the bridges, but they have sewer systems. They have water treatment plants. They have a huge investment. The Colorado's gung-ho on fracking. They're gung-ho on their wells. And it looks like they may be getting ready to pay the price for having little understanding of what the floodwaters are bringing back out of those wells at this time.
Well, in the way I understand it, they're protected by patent laws. We can't even find out what kind of chemicals that we're being exposed to now from those sites.
And as a lawyer, I can tell you you're right, because it's some sort of secret that we're putting a secret sauce into the ground, and we'll only let you know when someone really makes us have to tell you. Here's the last snippet that I brought with me about the Colorado episode, and that is on at 9:41 a.m. on Mountain Time, the National Weather Service issued a bulletin for the people of Colorado, and the bulletin reads this way, quote, "Major flash flooding event underway at this time with biblical rainfall amounts reported in many areas in and near the foothills." Biblical rainfall amounts.
There's going to be a lot of people that take that to heart, aren't there?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
And for our people of faith who pay attention to what's going on and pay attention to to the lessons that their leadership is trying to impart to them. You know, we've got a powerful ally, this guy in Rome. His name is Francis. Pope Francis took that name because of his commitment to the green side of the planet, the need to preserve, the need to sustain God's creation. And so when we see the National Weather Service describing the rainfall amounts as biblical, it should be time for all of us to sit up in our lazy boy recliners or our pews and to start saying, wait a minute, we need to form this parade.
And the solutions can make us all money at the same time. The solutions are here. The technologies are here. All we have to have is the public will to put the public policy in place to do it. That's the frustrating part for me.
Because Ed was the good student and went to the head of the class, he gets the last word. Thank you all very much for being a part of the show today.
Thank you, Channing.
And at this point, I want to also issue thanks to Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of the show. Fighting Burrito, located in Ames in downtown Des Moines on 13th Street, just south of Locust. You'll find a great atmosphere, great staff, and a delicious lunch. Their belief is a good meal can prepare you to do great things, and a healthy meal is a great step towards a satisfied, focused mind. Fighting Burrito is proud to serve fresh ingredients from local vendors, and they care about this planet and work hard to be efficient and green. Join the fight with them today. I also want to thank Dan Kelly in Newton. And Dan is a very versatile guy. As many of you know, he's a state legislator, but he's also a real estate agent, and he's a DJ. Who knew? Thanks also to Story County vet Dr. Ken Holding, who's been treating critters of all kinds in Ames for more than 3 decades. Your pets will come home smiling after a visit with Dr. Holding. And again, I want to also issue thanks to Hawk Restaurant for sponsoring this second segment of the show as well. And if you've not visited Hawk, be sure to make plans to do so soon. Experience delicious, sustainable, farm-to-table dining in the historic East Village of Des Moines at East 5th and Walnut. The menu evolves almost daily and exists to showcase the finest of Iowa ingredients while supporting the local farmers. Owners Suman and Cynthia Hawk believe that the best meal begins with the best ingredients, and that's why approximately 90% of the ingredients come from local farms. They're passionate about creating healthy, seasonal dishes with flavors from around the world, and they're committed to what they do, and they think you'll taste the difference. Also want to extend thanks to Diana's Wedding Cakes in Newton, and not just for weddings. She also has cupcakes and cookies, really all kinds of goodies, so call her for your special event needs today. Thanks also to Community CPA and Associates, who are committed to providing professional accounting and tax services to their clients where the differences in cultures, social values, and business practices are well understood without prejudice or preconceived judgment. Thanks again to our sponsors of the show, and also thanks to Maddie Kane, our producer, and to Webcast One Live. Thanks again to the sponsors, the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, the Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Great March for Climate Action, and to all of the sponsors who help make this show possible.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.